is the deal. And you can clearly see that on the SPC outlook for Thursday, March 14th, 2024. And this is a slight risk that we're looking at for Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and even parts of Louisiana for severe weather, which means we have a 15% risk for severe weather and a bit of a hatched risk in these two separate areas, which basically means that the severe weather will be strong. It'll be strong, severe weather that will be difficult to get through, especially in these areas in Iowa, Illinois, and Missouri, and also towards Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana, and Texas. This is going to be a pretty substantial severe weather event we're looking at. And, of course, we already have experienced some significant severe weather events in the past, so this won't be new. Of course, from that outbreak I was talking about in the previous video, we did unfortunately have 3 tornadoes. The strongest of which was the Nahunta tornado, which actually I now figured out is pronounced Nahunta. This tornado I named Briley, and this was a tornado that formed 1:39 p.m. in the mid-afternoon and also dissipated in the mid-afternoon. There are several pictures of the damage with this storm. You can see that there is significant damage to this house, and parts of the roof were blown off, and also some of the walls. You can also see that clearly on this image, where some of the graters were missing. I'm not exactly sure with this damage. I'm not a perfect damage assessor, but I know some of these materials, and some of these, I believe these are graters, I'm probably wrong, have been ripped off from the house. So that would indicate EF2 damage, and that is why this tornado is significant. It had winds of 130 miles per hour and was rated EF2 as a result. And the town of Nahunta, or the areas surrounding the town of Nahunta, was severely impacted with this, and unfortunately we did have 5 injuries. Thankfully no deaths, but we won't be so lucky next time, unfortunately. Or, we'll have to see. I hope that there's no deaths with these upcoming storms. But we also have this tornado that touched down in Echo, Alabama, named Tornado Asa, and this touched down nearly in the middle of the night, around 2:40 a.m. on Eastern time zone, and it was rated EF1. Some of the damage was significant, but it still wasn't as strong as the Nahunta tornado's damage. It was rated EF1 with 105 mile per hour winds and had a significant area of damage points to go off of. And lastly, we had one other tornado, which was named Tornado Angel by me, and was also rated EF1. This is the weakest out of all of the tornadoes as it crossed Leon and Jefferson County, but still is notable with its 100 mile per hour winds. So, we still have a lot to go off of with this severe weather event, and that might be able to make us be ensured what this upcoming severe weather event is going to be like. It may give us an idea, and maybe the setup will be similar, so that will also give us furthermore of an idea. So, moving on, we are now looking at the models. But first, let's look at the SPC outlook. Let's look at the SPC outlook not just for Thursday, but for Wednesday as well, because it's not just Thursday that's going to be severe. We also have a surprising 5% tornado risk for Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas, and also for Topeka, Kansas. We also have a 2% tornado risk within 25 miles of a given point for Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Norman, Broken Arrow, and Edmond, all in Oklahoma. And this is going to be a significant tornado event, nevertheless. This was the same percentage we had for those 3 tornadoes in the Georgia, Alabama, and Florida region. So, we're definitely not going to be perfectly safe with this event. Of course, it isn't looking as bad as what we're seeing on Thursday. Thursday does seem to be the main event that will occur. However, we are still seeing some significant severe weather possible tomorrow, Wednesday, in Kansas and Missouri, which pretty surprisingly propped up just this morning. So, definitely something to watch out for tomorrow, and maybe something that I'll have to go live for, so watch out for that. So anyways, going to the models, we do see that this is the general area where we're going to be experiencing severe weather at first, in some parts Thursday and definitely Wednesday. You can see a small group of rain showers will move through Missouri, and this is actually what will bring the severe weather threat for today. We are looking at a small severe weather threat with no tornado threat, thankfully. However, a small wind and hail threat for this storm that is incoming towards the Missouri area. And this is part of a larger system, which is going to be the same system that produces the severe weather on Tuesday and Wednesday. You can see that 1,004 millibar pressure system that is coming into the scene and producing some rain up there into Nebraska and Wyoming, and also continuing and producing some of those small severe storms on Wednesday, but also today. You can see late tonight, you can see a few storms popping up near the Kansas City area, all the way into Hannibal and parts of Iowa, near Ottumwa. And this will cause some severe weather, mostly in the form of hail and wind. But even though there isn't a 2% tornado risk, which means there's a 2% chance of a tornado in a given point, 25 miles of a given point, this will still have some tornado potential. Maybe more like a 1% that doesn't exist in this SPC outlook, but it will cause maybe a small potential for tornadoes to arise from the depths with this system. But you can see it's all part of this larger system that rapidly strengthens as it approaches Missouri. And right by this low pressure system, this is where we're seeing the first severe weather threat. Let's close in on the Midwest, the north central U.S. You can see a few storms are beginning to fire at that aforementioned time, late Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning. You can see these storms start around Lawrence, Kansas, into Kansas City, Missouri at around 7 p.m. tonight, which is pretty close to when this video will be uploaded. And eventually, they'll reach to a much higher strength as they move throughout central and north central Missouri, actually reaching into Iowa a little bit towards Ottumwa, and this will cause some storms and possibly some of the tornadoes. Likely not, but we'll really have to wait and see if the environment is conducive enough. In fact, let's look at that environment, the amount of CAPE that we have, the amount of energy we have, and surprisingly, we do have a little bit. This is why the tornado threat is not zero, because with these storms, this has enough energy to produce some tornadoes. Only for a very, very short period of time, though. Essentially 2 hours. Of course, you do get those brief 1,000 joules and 1,500 joules per kilogram in this area near Kansas City, which is slightly off-center from the storms, but some storms could still hatch onto that energy and maybe produce some spin-ups. However, of course, this just shows if it's capped or uncapped and the amount of CAPE available. CAPE basically is the amount of energy that is stored in, and it can be utilized for storms to grow and expand when they choose to. And this is what we're seeing here, the CAPE, and all of these colors. However, some of them are faded and some of them are brighter. The ones that are less obvious are ones that are capped, CAPE that is capped, which basically means that there isn't a perfect transition in those areas between warm and cold, which storms need to feed off of and properly grow enough in height and in strength to where they can produce tornadoes, hail, and all of those severe weather. So we really have to watch out for this. We don't want this because this allows storms to grow. And we might be seeing some of the growth of storms at around 8 p.m. tonight. And this is in the area where the storms are, slightly off-center, but some of the storms I bet will still reach into this, and that's why we have that small tornado threat. However, since it lasts so briefly, we're really unsure how much this is how much this is provable. Let's take a look at the HRRR, which does this hour by hour, and you can see this actually does last for a little bit longer than we originally perceived it to. It lasts for around 6 hours, and not all of it is uncapped, so some of it is not a perfect gradient between warm and cold air, but it is enough where some storms in these areas could develop, especially by 8 p.m. on Tuesday. But then moving on to the next day, you can see we have actually a lot more energy for these upcoming storms later on. Of course, you see these storms in Missouri, into Illinois already. However, they begin to dissipate. And then that's when the main system comes in. And by the main system, where a lot of energy is going to be pushed into the center of the storm, it's going to be dragged into it, you will see that a few storms are going to pick up that moisture that is being dragged into the center of the system and cause some thunderstorms, especially by 9, 10, 11 p.m. on Wednesday. There's quite a few storms that blow up, discrete as well, I might add, towards Missouri and Kansas, near the Kansas City area or just north of it. And this will lead to some severe weather, even tornadoes possibly, late at night. So that is a concern that we are watching, and this will continue all the way into Iowa even, which isn't even shown on the SPC outlook. However, this might not be a tornado threat due to the linearness of it, which means that a ton of storms are fighting off of the same energy at once in a line, so there'll be less energy for each individual storm, meaning that we won't as likely get tornadoes. And this lasts all the way into Thursday morning, but this is mostly a line now, so the main threat is damaging winds and hail with this. But the tornado threat will exist late evening into early morning on Wednesday into Thursday. And that is what we are watching with these storms that blow up in Kansas and enter into Missouri. Even as early as 5 p.m. we could be looking at something. We really have to wait and see. And this is right by the low pressure system. That is what's causing all of this. The same low pressure system is going to cause what the storms associated with that slight risk in Illinois, Missouri, and all of those places later on Thursday. You can see there's even more storms that begin to develop in southern Iowa and later blow up into a few discrete supercells, which may also lead to some tornadoes, and especially hail and winds, specifically here in northwestern Illinois into southwestern or southeastern Iowa, near the Davenport area, late on Thursday afternoon towards Thursday evening. At around 7 p.m., we'll be experiencing some storms in the general Iowa and Illinois vicinity, which may produce some tornadoes. And some tornadoes will even be possible all the way towards the Chicagoland area, where the risk will eventually drop down by around 9 p.m. This is slightly earlier than what we've seen with the past few days for the threat with tornadoes, so thankfully, it won't be really as much of a nighttime threat, which is good, because we don't like nighttime tornadoes because you can't see them, and you'll be asleep. But then these storms eventually congeal into a whole mess that isn't enough to produce tornadoes. Maybe down here in Missouri, we could get a few more lines firing up, which aren't too long, so that might be able to cause some tornadoes, as they're not fighting for as much, or not a lot of storms are fighting for the same energy at once as usual. So we might get a few tornadoes down there as the system continues to move towards the St. Louis area now. This is as far as the model goes, but you get the point basically. Now looking at the main region. The main region that we're seeing is the south central U.S., which is where we are seeing that severe weather event in Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Texas. Now, looking back at the Cape, you can see there was quite a lot of Cape for this system in Kansas and Missouri, up to 2,500 joules per kilogram, which is quite a bit, if you ask me. This is what we get in the southern risk. And you can see these are much higher values. In fact, they're pretty concerning near Texarkana and towards Broken Arrow, Oklahoma even. You definitely can see there is a significant area of up to 4,000 joules per kilogram, which is a lot if you didn't know already. And over here, we actually have a similar amount too, which is why we have that northern risk firing off too. But the main event will take place in the southern risk. You can see how much energy there is for storms at 5 p.m. on Thursday, and these will definitely cause storms to fire and definitely some tornadoes, especially in this region towards Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, and Louisiana. This will continue to move backwards, strangely enough, and eventually away from the storms, which means the storms won't be able to last for that long as the main source of energy moves backwards. And once again, realize this is uncapped, which means there's a perfect gradient between warm and cold air where storms can develop. And this will eventually detach from the main storms, but you can still see there will be enough energy for these storms, definitely, in the whole region of Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. So, what does that exactly make fire? Well, it does this, and you can see a huge cluster of storms all the way from Illinois to Missouri, Oklahoma, and down into the Texas region. Now, not a whole lot of storms will actually fire in the hotspot of this, which is pretty surprising, but we might get some storms that form off the back of this line, which may produce some supercells and eventually some tornadoes. This will start off in northern Arkansas into south central Oklahoma, where the main risk will be, and also a little bit into northeast Texas, but that will be all the way back at 7 p.m. You can see these storms originating by that point. But they won't become at their strongest until around 10 p.m., which means, yes, we unfortunately are going to have some nocturnal tornadoes while you are sleeping and when you can't see them, which is very unfortunate and not what we want to see. However, it doesn't seem like the tornado risk is absolutely phenomenal. It just seems that this might be a risk, and we'll definitely have to watch out for it, as we've already seen what happens with this event. So, we just have to wait and see what is going to happen with this. Then afterwards, we have a few other things going on in the U.S. We might get some snow, as well as some other storms across the whole region, and we really do have to watch about what's going to happen. But you can see on the ECMWF model, some of this is snow, some of this is rain. Let me go back to the GFS, that isn't showing the full model run. The ECMWF, this will be some snow, as there are cold temperatures here. You see the blue outlines? Eventually, as the storm system moves past, some cold air will be dragged into the south-central U.S., and that will cause some snow to some of those areas that remain cold from that newer system moving away. In fact, we might actually get some snow in Texas from this system, which is pretty surprising, to say the least. If you look at the precipitation and winter area, you can see by I'm trying to figure this out. By a certain point, you will get some snow just off the epicenter of that severe weather, only a few hundred miles away. In New Mexico, you'll be seeing up to 15 inches with all of these storms up to March 27th. And most of it will fall from the same system that is causing severe thunderstorms in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. During Friday, we may see quite a bit of snow fall in the Rockies, and not even just the Rockies, the plains that are next to the Rockies. Even up there towards Denver, you could see over a foot of snow, which is fairly rare, but it does happen. And that will be a significant area of snow for you guys up there in the plains. No other true areas exist where we're going to see a significant area of snow. However, we might get something in the northeast as the second system approaches, and you can see a bit of moisture enters into the region. Now, this doesn't show the snow dividing line because it doesn't show that on Tropical Tidbits, but you can imagine that this is snow that is falling in New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine, just because, well, actually, let's look at what the snow is. There we go. I couldn't just take it anymore. But of course, you can see these systems will cause some snow in Maine, northern New Hampshire, and definitely into Canada as the second system moves in all the way here. It may also fire some storms here in Texas yet again towards Louisiana, only a few hundred miles from where that snow dropped on late Saturday to Sunday. However, we're not really sure about this because the main low pressure system seems to be disconnected from that main moisture region. We're still unsure. There could be something here, but it doesn't look like it'll last for long as this new cold air setup will move in and possibly cause some lake effect snow along the Great Lakes. But anyways, that's the general picture you can see. We are expecting some severe weather, and it may be something to go home about. We do have to be careful with this upcoming severe weather event, as it does seem significant both on Wednesday and Thursday. So we really do have a lot to watch. Will those storms fire off? Will they fire off where the main Cape area is? There's a lot of questions to ask. But one thing we know, severe weather is on the way. So be prepared out there. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Please make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications. If you don't know what the notifications look like, it's a bell icon right next to the subscribe button. And also make sure to like this video. I don't care if you dislike. If you really didn't like this video, fine, dislike. But anyways, guys, it's just a simpler and freer feeling if you decide to take that one exit, just that one move, to make it onto the Morris Data on the Road freeway. Goodbye, guys.